back, everyone, to another episode of Living Your Greatness. My name is Ben Mummy, and today I have a new guest to the show, and his name is Tommy Lee. So for those of you that don't know Tommy Lee, he has 20 years in marketing and talent management leadership in diversity, equity, inclusion, customer service, and employee engagement. He has a track record of delivering results through effective communication, quantitative metrics, as well as networking. Tommy Lee's ability to translate company values into a compelling story has helped him exceed customer and client expectations to motivate employees and foster community buy-in. So Tommy, before we get going today, I want to welcome you to the show. It's a pleasure to have you on today.
Thank you, Ben. Had to unmute myself. Sorry.
All good.
Thank you. What a great introduction.
Awesome, Tommy. Tommy, looking forward to having you here. Let's kind of get kicking, before we hop into today's discussion, you're a very unique person, not only in your professional life, but as well as a father. So we'll also be talking about fatherhood and as well as just, in terms of community involvement. So I can't wait, to create a memorable conversation here for people. So starting off, tell us a little bit about yourself. Where did you spend your formative years growing up? And what inspired you, to first pursue a career in multicultural marketing, diversity, employee engagement? And how has this experience, maybe had an approach or kind of shaped your leadership as a person?
Well, that's a huge question. There's a lot to unpack there. Okay, so let's start. The first part was formative years, Wethersfield, Connecticut. So I'm from Connecticut, born in Dayton, Ohio, early elementary school years, Livonia, Michigan, right outside of Detroit. And then dad got a job, left Ford Motor Company, went to United Technologies, Pratt & Whitney in Connecticut. And so I was in summer of fifth, transitioning into sixth grade that summer. I'll never forget it because we lived in a hotel. It was great until the new house was built. And it was just very memorable. I love Connecticut. I love New England. I hate cold weather. So that's why I don't live there today. But I visit often. It's my hometown. I love Wethersfield. I love Connecticut. It's just a beautiful place to bring up people, bring up kids, and some really good people. Wethersfield, we were one of 3 Black families that moved into Wethersfield in 1977 was the year of my summer of fifth grade. And so there were the Browns, which is my family, the Greens, and the Williamses. So there were 3 families. I'm sorry, there were the Pounds. There were the Pounds as well. So 4 families, 3 in my neighborhood that we were really close with. But anyway, I mean, being raised with mostly Italians and Jews in Wethersfield, Connecticut, those are my peeps. I mean, that's just, they welcomed my family with open arms, all of us with open arms. And why not? We were great people, great families. So Wethersfield, Connecticut, I have a very, very special, fond place in my heart. Because again, it's home, number one. And looking back now as an adult, looking back at my childhood years, that could have been a very, very bad situation. And it was for a lot of my friends the same year, 75, 76, 77, growing up in the early 80s. It could have been a very, very, it was troublesome for a lot of people, a lot of racial things going on, especially those Blacks who were moving out into the suburbs in America. But in our case, that wasn't our story, So today, I'm just a big fan of Wethersfield and the people there because they judge you on your character, not so much, they don't judge you on the color of your skin.
Awesome. Yeah, no, I appreciate you for sharing that, about your formative years, and how, how you made yourself part of that community and acceptance of, those differences, but similarities, right?
Right.
So I really appreciate that. And then so transitioning from there, like, how did that lead afterwards, after your formative years? How did you transition to all the really cool kind of, professional careers that you kind of went into?
I'm really kind of connecting the dots now, Ben. Thank you. Because now I'm seeing the line between Wethersfield, Connecticut, and maybe the trajectory or that's the springboard to the rest of my life, because I've always been passionate about I didn't have the words then, diversity. I didn't know the words inclusion. My parents never told me about being, diversity. They never said, make sure, you practice inclusion. But they said treat people the way you should be treated. They said follow the golden rule. They said treat people nice and people will treat you nice. I mean, it was just the basic golden rules, what I was taught. Later, now I'm looking back and I say those are the cornerstones or the building blocks of diversity, which is just appreciate who I am for what I am. Here's something that really irritates me when people are like, I don't see color, Tommy Lee. Of course you see color. Ben, you can see where there's different colors, right? You can see I'm an African American man, and I can see that you're a Caucasian man. And so, what does that mean to me, talking to you as a Caucasian man? Not much. It doesn't mean much. Don't take offense. But I'm not judging you on the color of your skin. So, I'm going to have to talk to you a little bit, find out what Ben's about, and then I'll start casting judgment. And that'll be judgment on your character, whether I want to be your friend or not. So, that's how I walk through life. I wish everybody did. But it's very hard to do. I still have biases that I'm still working with. I just discovered one a few months ago, where I was going to speak to a bunch of rich people in a country club. And on the way there, I just started feeling more and more irritated. And I didn't know why. I had my music in, had some Motown pumping. The weather was great. I was about to speak, which I love to do, about a subject I love, scouting. And I was just really irritated. By the time I got there, I was ready. Like, if anybody said anything slightly negative to me, I was ready to take them on. And I was like, wait a minute, Tommy, where's this coming from? And I just realized I have a bias against rich people, mega rich people. So they're talking about, son's birthday. I bought him 72 acres of land to hunt so he could hunt on his birthday. So I gave him that as a gift, 72 acres of land for a birthday present. And I'm sitting there and I'm just like, do you know how many kids I could have helped with that money? I'm thinking to myself, but it's your money. You do what you want to. And this man probably does do great things for kids everywhere. But again, that's my bias. I'm not in that position. I would love to be, but I had to check myself. I'm constantly working on myself, Ben, constantly, because I just want to be the best version of Tommy Lee possible, and I don't want to miss out on an opportunity for a job or a friend simply because he's rich or white or different religion or different sexual orientation. That's ridiculous to me. I'm not going to miss out on an opportunity to connect with someone who could be a great human being simply because of my stupid biases.
Absolutely. Yeah, no. And I'm glad that you mentioned biases, right? Because we all do have it, whether we want to admit it or not.
We do.
And,
yes.
Thanks for sharing that example, of imperfection, but as well as, in terms of for you, you realizing, okay, there's differences here, right? Because there are so many differences of even perspectives, right? So I appreciate you for sharing that story. And yeah, totally. Like, we should always be working on ourselves, right? To be that 1% better. So no, I really, really admire that. Something that I want to kind of focus here is something that I know you were really involved with, in your professional career. You worked at Rideau Inc. You worked with Peter Hart, who's actually, who we have in common, great person, also was on the podcast. But I know a big thing that, you were part of, the recognition program. More importantly, you've always seemed to be, whether it's at Rideau or in Scouts, there's a common ground of community. So a question I have for you is, in your professional life, when you were at Rideau, what did you learn about, fostering community buy-in and employee motivation, and how has it helped, any organization, with their results when you were there?
So the main thing that Rideau did for me, again, Peter's my friend, the CEO of Rideau, who was the CEO of Rideau at the time. And Peter and I served together on the board of directors of Employee Recognition International, RPI, it was an organization. It is an organization that fosters and propels the concepts of employee recognition to get business results. It's not a soft skill. Those of us in the industry understand how important it is to make people feel valued and part of the team, and they work harder for you, and they get results, and they transfer that great feeling that they have. They transfer that to your clientele, to your customers. So from the customer to stakeholder return, it just covers all bases, being in tune to your employee recognition program and those things that will engage your employees. So that being said, what Rideau did for me intellectually, I already knew all that. You can read all that in the book. Tommy Lee's not telling you anything that you can't find by Googling. But what you can't find by Googling, and the thing that Rideau really taught me, especially Peter and Jennifer, who are the two people I directly reported to, they lived the values. You could see in their personal lives, which they're both very, very transparent about. You know, inviting me over for dinner when I'm up there, spending the night at the house if I didn't have a hotel room. Like, they just treat me like family. And it's been decades, you know, it's been over a decade. So as well they should. I treat them like family as well. But what they've been able to do in letting me see their private lives and the relationships with their spouses and their kids, and it showed me that this employee recognition thing, it's not just a concept that you leave at work. Because I would be like a sponge or a fly on the wall, and I'd hear the record. Oh, son, that's so great. Peter would be so specific about the feedback that he would give his kids who just, you know, had some kind of triumph, or his grandkid who just won some kind of hockey game. And Peter would, you know, he would just take time and listen to him. So it's the same things. I'm like, Peter, you're not slick. You're using the same things we use at work. You're using at home. Now, what came first, the chicken or the egg? I'm not sure, Peter. I am sure. What came first was the recognition or the heart, and saying, you know, how can I make this person feel good or appreciated that they did something for me? And so then you do that, and then you say, hey, that's why I say with Peter, this is first. It was the heart. Well, if it works at home or if it works with my wife, why can't it work with my coworkers? Why don't I treat them the same way? And so that's what Rideau did for me. It took the concept of employee recognition engagement and made it real, so it impacts every aspect of my life. Am I perfect at it? No. But hopefully when most people walk away from me, they will feel appreciated, or they feel valued. I just started doing this little thing. I'll be at the store, and then just say, instead of saying thank you for your change, I just say I appreciate you. Thanks. That little I appreciate you instead of thank you, or in addition to thank you, makes such a difference. You watch and do it, Ben. They'll just like look at you kind of strange. Like, you appreciate me? This is my job. I'm being paid for this. Yeah, but you have a smile on your face. I appreciate that. You know? So, I mean, it's just a little like that was the main thing that Rideau did for me. Now, as far as community, Rideau was very, very big in the community, and so am I. So anything that we did, it was always community focused. So whether it was, you know, Peter painting with people, kids at the YMCA, we did that here in North Carolina. That was a wonderful event. Or, you know, painting with the homeless there at his art gallery. I mean, so whatever we did at Rideau, there was always going to be a community focus to it. Yeah, it's good business because, you know, it's your brand and it gets out there. But then it's also just the right thing to do. And it touches people's hearts. And they're like, wow, this gallery is doing this with the homeless. That's great. Maybe the next time I need a painting, I'll go in there. So it does two things. It's good business sense, and it just shows the community that you're on their side, that you're one of them.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. No, I appreciate, you know, that example, you know, of, you know, just how we could demonstrate it in a simple action, you know, like at a store. But something that I'm curious to dive a little bit further in is, you probably saw a lot of examples, or a lot of, how to say, ways that organizations, you know, could really develop properly, you know, employee engagement and recognition, you know, by putting like the person first mentality, right? And kind of like you said, right, you can apply that into many areas of your life, like not only work but also family as well as communities. So question I have for you, whether it is a CEO listening in, or whether it is, you know, a coach of a sports team, or whether it is, you know, a family individual, what are the biggest standout lessons that you learned from Rideau for someone, you know, to make that engagement so memorable?
To make engagement memorable, it's pretty simple. It has to be specific. So you just have to make sure that when you're recognizing people that say, hey, Ben, great podcast. You're like, huh, okay. All right. For example, social media. Do you have Facebook, Ben?
I do, yes.
Or Instagram?
I do.
So, you know, when you do a great post, this post is awesome. You put it out there, And then bang, bing, 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 you start getting all these responses. So the responses that say, oh, that's the truth, or great job, or congratulations, or whatever, they're okay, right? Do you really stop? Somebody writes a paragraph and says, hey, Ben, that is great. I watched your podcast for the first time. I love how you and Tommy Lee, how you guys connected. Those are some great questions, especially the questions about community engagement, because I'm looking into that myself. Great job. Which one makes you feel better? It's the specific one, right? Versus the great job general, like you probably didn't even watch it, right? So it tells you two things. This person actually watched it, and it meant enough to them to write and tell me why. It was specific, so it makes you feel better. So if it's specific, it has to be timely. That's the other thing. So Ben has a great new podcast, the new episode with Tommy Lee. Tune in on Monday. And then 7 months from now, say, hey, Ben, I finally got around to watching that thing with Tommy Lee. Great job. Well, I mean, yeah, thank you. I'm glad you watched it. And I guess it was timely because you sent it right after you watched it. But, the moment's gone. So make sure that it's timely, because you want it as close to that action as possible, because it's the closer you can get there, the more meaningful it is.
Absolutely.
So I think those would probably be the two bases. And meaningful. That's the third one. It's got to be meaningful. So don't say, hey, Timmy Lee, great job. Well, my name's Tommy Lee. So make sure you get my name right. Make sure that it's meaningful, the recognition that you get given. I don't know if you've ever been in this situation, but I always tell companies, when you name your employee of the year, it should be unanimous in the audience. Everybody should be cheering. That it's not them, but they're cheering because of who it is. That should be your employee of the year. If you're getting a response that's kind of tepid, you chose the wrong person. So think about why you chose that person and where it's broken in your nomination process, because maybe you didn't get the right person nominated. Well, then there's an issue with your marketing of the program, because you got to get it out there so the right people are nominated. So yeah, those three things, being able to be timely and specific, and making sure that, the recognition is meaningful. Those are the three things. If you can do that at work, if you can do that with your spouse, do it with your child, do it with my brand new friend, Ben, yes, then you will be successful.
That's awesome.
Guaranteed.
Yeah.
Guaranteed.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Like, I think the biggest thing I got from that is, really making sure that it's personable, making sure that's very specific, like that you kind of said.
Mm-hmm. And close to the action, is
close as well, meaningful, memorable. Yeah. So no, that's great points. And then another question I kind of want to ask, like we spoke about Peter Hart, right? So some people maybe have tuned in, to my episode with him. Maybe some people haven't. Peter Hart is a huge mentor of mine. I really admire him as a person just because of how he treats people, right? And he even said on my podcast, whether it's a janitor or whether it is a high CEO, doesn't matter who the person is. He just knows how to put the person first mentality. So a question I have for you is, what was it like working with a leader like Peter Hart? And are there any memorable highlights that you like to share with my listeners?
Okay, so there's another 3 hours right there. But memorable. I remember the first time I met him. So I was walking into the board. I think we were on the board together, or we installed the same year. And I just said to myself, after that first meeting, about 3-4 hours before the lunch or dinner, whatever it was, I'm going to be friends with him, because I chose him out of everybody else in that room. I didn't know anyone, no one. I knew no one. I'm sorry, I did know one person who recommended me to come to the board, Lisa. Hey, Lisa. But I knew no one. And by the time I had my eyes locked on him, and I was like, there's something about this guy. And what it was just that he was like a magnet. And everybody was just, hey, Peter. And it wasn't like a celebrity type of magnet. It was just people wanted to be around his energy, and so did I. And I had no idea why. So that's when I met him. So he has not disappointed in the, I don't know, 10, 12 years I've known him. He hasn't disappointed at all. And he's not perfect. And I will be the first one to tell him to his face. And he knows that, because we're friends. But he's good. But guess what, Ben? He'll do the same for me. And I count on that, and that's what a friend should do. Like, wait a minute, Peter, that's not right. Or Tommy Lee, you're looking at this wrong. You know, and I count on that from my friend. But as far as working for my friend, I was a little hesitant because he was my friend of several years before I left MetLife and had the opportunity to work for him. And again, I love Peter so much and Francine so much and his kids so much. Like, I was like, do I want to mix business with pleasure? And then I was just like, well, since let me go ahead and do this and take a risk, because if I had to choose a boss and make a boss, it would be in the form of Peter. It honestly would. And so I did take that chance. And I did start working for Peter. And then I eventually started working for Jennifer Lumba, my other boss. And it was some of the best times of my life. It truly was. I grew up a lot, learned a lot. And today, almost every day, there's something I've from that time that I use, because it was just, you again, I'm like a sponge and I like to watch. So I just observe what's going on. Yeah, there's things about working for a medium to small company I didn't like versus MetLife, which was a huge insurance conglomerate. So I was raised up 20 years at MetLife, and then come to Rideau is a little different. Coming from MetLife, where it's all about metrics and numbers, it's corporate America, stockholder value, blah blah blah. To my boss and CEO saying, "Tommy Lee, did anybody die?" No, no, Peter, no one died. Then you'll be okay, and we'll be okay. We'll figure this out. What? Mind blown. It's like, what? He's treating. I made a huge mistake. No one died, so he's okay with it. We'll figure it out. And I've made some huge mistakes, huge mistakes. But I've had lots of huge wins too. So I guess that's why they kept me around. But it was an environment where they encourage risk taking, where, yeah, let me find out the reasons why I can say yes instead of finding out a reason why to say no. Let me figure out how to say yes. And that's almost every interaction. And then you talk about Peter talking about the janitor and the CEO. It doesn't matter. Truly, I've seen it in person. One of my favorite things to do is watch Peter is go do the tour around Rideau. I've done that tour probably at least a dozen times, because every time I learn something new, and I like watching him, and I like the reactions from the new employees where they're like, this is the CEO that's asking me about my kid. Like, it just blows their mind, but that's just who Peter is.
Absolutely. And I think that comes from, being a genuine, authentic leader, right? And he's definitely someone that I kind of categorize there. And
I would describe him as a servant leader. I
servant
don't know if
leader,
that term is big in Canada, but it's
right?
big down here. And I'm not so much of a buzzwords type of guy. Matter of
Right.
fact, I make up my own buzzwords. If I don't find a word that I like, I just make it up and hope it catches on. But with where was I?
You were talking about a servant leader.
Thank you, servant leader. Thank you, servant leader. That describes Peter. It's a leader that that walks in the way of serving, instead of being served, or I'm boss, or what I say goes, or just that old 80s 90s model of being the big guy in charge. Well, Peter flattens the organization a lot. That's what he does. There's not so many levels. Yeah, you have to always have a CEO, you always have to have managers, and but you don't have to walk in that as your label, or as your or the cloak that you wear behind. Yeah, I'm a manager, I'm in charge of managing this department, but we're all in this together. You need me to step in while you run to the bathroom? I'll take the next call. No big deal, I'm the manager. I have seen all vice presidents at Rideau. We all clean bathrooms. If the thing is full, we empty it. Why not? I mean, the janitors are our friends. They're no better than me. None. No better. Matter of fact, most of them are better than me. I think, can characterize anyway. Great people. So anyway, I say all that to say that that's the way Peter runs his organization, and he runs his organization like he runs his house, and he runs his organization like he runs his community work, and it's all about the person first. Find out what the person is about first, and then try to touch them in a way that means something to them.
Yeah, no, and I think that's huge because that also by actually knowing the person too, you know their strengths and you know their weaknesses and you know how
Mm-hmm.
to, bring out the best of them, right? So I think that's huge. But something that I do want to ask you, because you brought up that the environment was so open in a way where you feel like you were able to take risks, right? And
Mm-hmm.
obviously, when we're making decisions, right, we can make mistakes or we could have successes. And lots of times, people talk about their successes, right? Because it went well, they're proud. So, question I have for you is, what were two examples in terms of what was a huge success that you had when you were there sorry, when you were there at Rideau, and what was a huge failure, if you don't mind sharing?
Mm-hmm. Well, I never failed. Just kidding. um, that's hard. You know what? I would say I can't think of one. I mean, we've won, several clients, and my job on the pitch team was basically just to go there and talk about the customer experience, what they would do when they came to Rideau, and how the customer would be treated. And for a lot of them, that was their main number one thing. I mean, it is employee recognition, but they're trying the end goal for a lot of companies is making sure that customer satisfaction rating is up more so than share market value or any other metric. It's all important, but for some companies, that was their main number one metric. So when I successful, the most the high 5 days is when we had great pitches. You know, when we would go into a PetSmart or go into a TJ Maxx or whatever the store was and show them our products because we had the best products in the industry. I'm sorry. I mean, I don't work for them anymore, and they've even changed their name. They've been bought by Engage to Excel. Engage to Excel has one of the best recognition programs out there today. I can honestly say that, if not the best. It's I won't get into a sales pitch, but those were my favorite things was talking to prospective customers and letting them hear and see our product, but hear our passion. Because you're just not going to get anybody more passionate than Rideau in a pitch. Those were, I think, my biggest successes. Whether I won or not, when I walked out, it's very easy to say, "Oh, biggest success when I won this account." Those aren't big. That's not what can't even remember the names of any accounts I've won. That's not what's important to me. This is when I pitch and walk out that room. There's so many factors out there, Ben. After I leave the room, you know, somebody's brother-in-law might be the head of this company. So that's why they get the contract. It may not be, there's forces out there that's not just us, maybe we're too pricey. Maybe we weren't big enough. And maybe we didn't, sounds like we're giving away too much at too little price. So it makes people suspicious. We heard that before. It's like, really? We're too cheap? So everybody's got their own little criteria for picking you. So sometimes it was our fault. Sometimes it wasn't. Sometimes it's just the lay of the land, and sometimes it's a coin toss. So that's why I think the biggest successes or things I remember are more the pitch and not really winning the account. Challenges or things that didn't go right. I mean, again, I can't think of any, but there's been so many. I've misspelled things on important email. I mean, it's things everybody's done. But the things I tend to mess up are attention to detail. Just the little typo of that. Why did I use there instead of THERE instead of THI, ER, that kind of thing. So it's like, it's those kind of things. I have put my foot in the mouth in a presentation. I remember that over promising something that I thought we could do and found out later we couldn't. Luckily, maybe that's not the right to say. We didn't win that account, so it didn't matter. So we didn't have to go back to the client and change that. So stuff like that, just unintentional stuff, I think, are the stuff that was most challenging. And then when I don't get along with coworkers, that really bothers me. And there's one coworker I can think of, right now that I had a bad issue with. I just felt like he was, railroading me on a department that was mine. And this is Rideau. We were all kumbaya, so I didn't understand. And coming from a corporate environment, this was a learning. Coming from the MetLife corporate environment, he's a vice president. I'm a vice president. I got on the email and wrote him what I thought. And I put it in email so that there's documentation. I didn't want him saying, and Tommy Lee said this, and I didn't. It's all right there. And then I remember Peter calling me and saying, hey, because I CC Peter on it too. And I said, hey, Peter was like, hey, I was like, oh, here comes Peter to my rescue. Hey, man, you saw the thing? He's like, we don't send emails like that. What are you doing, Tommy Lee? And I was, what? Are you kidding me? I'm in trouble. All I did was outline what he did. I didn't add anything. All I did was outline what he did, and what he did was wrong. Yeah, but there's no but, Peter. And so we went back and forth, and again, challenging time with Peter, challenging time. And then I came to the conclusion that this is a small company versus a large company. Yeah, we're both vice presidents, and at MetLife, you should be able to, we would handle it. And our CEO would never even know about it. We're grown men. Like we're two men at the same level. Having a disagreement happens every day. So I just didn't understand why this was such it got blown out of proportion. Peter's mad at me. We just talk to each other. We don't do that. We don't document. We don't, not document, but we just don't handle it that way. And today I beg to differ. I don't think there was anything wrong with the way I handled it, but it was a difference of opinion. And he's the boss. He gets the veto power. I didn't apologize or anything, but I was just like, it is what it is. We all got on the phone. He apologized. I apologized for my tone or whatever, but it was just like it was all good. It was all good. And me and that guy I would have no problem calling him today if I was in town and taking him to dinner. We're good.
That's good. Yeah, you kind of figured out like your differences, you resolve the problem. And I appreciate you for sharing, like those I don't want to say mistakes, but things that happen, things that happen in work and relationships and all that stuff. So I truly admire that. Something that I want to move to is, we've talked a lot about your, professional side. And so I appreciate you, for sharing all your insights and experience. But something that I want to shift to is you're huge on community, and we've used that word a lot. And one specific area that I think, or at least it appears to me that you're very proud of, is being a troop leader, for Boy Scouts of America. And I know there's a pretty interesting story of how you got involved. So do you want to first share, before we dive in there, you want to share how you got involved with it?
Sure. So scouting, I've been in scouting 13 years. We started with my oldest son, Ori. We bought popcorn. There's Boy Scouts sell popcorn, Girl Scouts sell cookies. Tired of people asking us for cookies. We don't sell cookies. Boy Scouts sell popcorn. So we're out there, bought a bag of popcorn from this boy, and he starts telling Ori about the canoeing and the bow and arrows and the fire. We get to make fire. And his eyes are just huge. So he's in fourth grade. And I'm not outdoorsy at all. Suburban Connecticut, never been involved in scouting. I was a real obese person until about 18 years ago, 19 years ago. So I was extremely obese as a kid and as an adult and as a father. And so like I just never felt like doing anything. Never wanted physical activity was never part of my plan until 18 years ago when I finally lost the weight. So, it's scouting what it did. So, long story short, 2 years later, I tried to have him forget about it, have him go on to the next thing. He never would. He was relentless. So now he's in sixth grade. 2 years later, we joined. And because of me and Ori are going there, we're all just going to join Scouts. So I have 4 sons, and they were sixth grade, fifth grade, third grade, first grade. That's when we started scouting. And so my first grade son, Solomon, my youngest, didn't have a den leader for about 3 weeks. And I wanted to be the drop-off dad. I was like, I'm going to drop them off. I'll pick them up in 90 minutes. And my friends were like, no, you're going to want to stay. It's a great bonding. I said, we're bonded. No, like we're here. We roll together, all 6 of us, all day long, 7 days a week. I don't need scouts to bond with my kids. Matter of fact, dad will be in the parking lot taking a nap while they're in there because I have no interest in any of that. Camping, outdoors, no, I have no interest. Scouting is so much more than that. And there's a place for everyone in scouting, no matter what you do. And I found that out. So after about 3 weeks, no leader, I can build a popsicle stick rocket with first graders, no problem. So I went ahead and been the leader and fell in love with those kids. I fell in love with my first graders. Those first graders, I stayed with them. So we moved to second grade together. We moved to third grade together. Now those, the first grade is called Tigers. Second grader is called bears. So every grade I'm sorry, second grade is wolves, third grade is bears. I don't, my scout family, they don't play that. So yeah, so we joined. I loved it. I fell in love with my tigers, my first graders, and now my all my tigers are freshmen in college. My tigers are all now freshmen in college. They call me Uncle Tommy now. We are all family. We've been together 13 years. And that is my biggest success story, I feel, with scouting. Is not only my four sons have made the rank of Eagle Scout, that's the highest level in scouting. So about 6% of scouts make it to Eagle Scouts. And out of 6% of the scouts, less than 1% are African American. So it's a very, very rare thing. And I have four of them. I'm very proud of them. And I've also assisted dozens of other African American boys become Eagle Scouts. So I'm excited about scouting because, number one, I never would have dreamed that I would be involved in scouting. I became Cub Master of the whole unit. I became scout. I became committee chair of the whole unit. Now I'm order representative, which means I'm in charge of the church's whole, both the Cub Scouts and the Boy Scouts. They all report to me. And I just make sure I remove obstacles and get them funding to make sure they can do what they, and work with the church to make sure that they can do what they need to do. It's great. It's a great, and now I'm on the board of directors. So that's where I spend most of my time, not so much with Troop 63, where I came from. Again, I'm the charter order representative for that, but that doesn't require a lot of time. Now I'm focused on the community. So I'm the executive vice president of Scout Reach, which is, I'm in charge of all the Black and Brown Scouts, Scouts of color in Mecklenburg County. I'm in charge of disabled Scouts. I'm in charge of high risk, low income Scouts, and rural Scouts, Scouts that are way out and they find it difficult to connect with a troop and they might have to do it alone. All those kids come under me. So all the non-traditional Scouts, not Scouts like my four kids, who are just very traditional. They meet every Tuesday. They go camping every weekend. These Scouts are a little different, like my Latino Scouts. So they it's called Soccer and Scouting, and I have about 150 kids who play soccer every Saturday. Latino kids, they play soccer every Saturday right down the street from me, and then they scout on the off season. And we have a couple of Eagle Scouts coming from there this year. I'm just so excited about everything that we're doing with scouting, and I'm just very excited that my influence is no longer just with my den, you know, my 7 or 8 tigers. It's no longer with my pack, which is about 50 kids. It's no longer with just my troop, which is about another 50 teenagers. And it's no, you know, now my influence is spread around the county, and I'm helping hundreds of kids. So I just love it. I have another new strategy I just started. It's our Divine Nine strategy, which are the Black fraternities here in America. Most of the Black fraternities have houses. So I want them to have scouting units. So we got the first one, which is PAC 1906, which are the men of Alpha Phi Alpha. Martin Luther King was an Alpha. They were the first Black fraternity, and now we have them as their own pack here in Charlotte. Just signed up the second Black fraternity, the men of Kappa Alpha Kappa. They've signed up, so they're going to have their own pack of kids. So I'm trying to get all 9 of these Black fraternities and sororities to sponsor a scouting unit in their community, and take it from there. And if I can get this going, then I can certainly get it going statewide, which means I can certainly get it going nationwide. Why not? So we'll see. We'll check in 5 years, see how many I have. But every city has these fraternities, and all the fraternity sororities want to help the community. So it's a win-win. So we just got to roll it out. So I love being able to have the creative freedom to do that on the board.
I love that. It's crazy to see how it went from, you know, you just having popcorn with your son, and then next thing you know, get involved, and then slowly, right, just climbing up that ladder. So it obviously speaks words, you know, of your passion with, you know, being involved with scouts, and you know what, it was really cool to hear about all the other areas of impact that you've done there. Question that I have,
And,
though,
and one more thing, Ben, scouting is very good at recognition. They're very, very good at recognition. There's different ways. We earn badges, we
Yeah.
earn patches. Patches aren't worth anything, but they're worth everything to us.
Yeah.
So that's another, form of recognition. This right here, wait, which am I? Right here. This award right there. That's the Whitney M. Young Jr. Award for helping scouts in the African American community. I'm so proud of that. Sorry. I'm so proud of that right there. And when I got it, of course, I was floored. I didn't know it was coming. It's a very big honor. It's a huge medal that I get to wear with my uniform, and this beautiful plaque. And it's just great to be recognized for my help with the African American community. And Scouts does a great job. I never would have thought, never. 12 years ago, when I'm making popsicle rockets. But again, scouting, you can find a place in scouting. Even me, who don't tell my kids, but I hate camping. I can't stand it. Most of the time we camp, and there's my house is 5 miles away. Why am I in the woods? With my bad back laying on the ground? Because I'm with the kids, and they get to experience the outdoors, and they get to, there's no phones. We don't allow phones, and they have to listen to nature, and they have to talk to each other and find out about their friends. And then you hear the tent mates laughing and giggling after lights out. Hey, be quiet in there. But we're not over obsessed about it, because that's part of the camping experience, right? Is telling jokes under the covers and sneaking with your flashlight so the scoutmaster doesn't see you. We get all that. And so it's all fun. It's all the experience. And we are just honored. Most of the men and women I work with, we are just honored to be able to spend so much time with such great kids. We really are. And to be recognized for that is just the icing on the cake.
Totally. No, that's awesome. And a question that I have that I'm curious to ask, from all your experience there and like your involvement is, how do you approach, instilling values like leadership, teamwork, and community service, into some of these young children, and you've had that experience where you've seen them go from young all the way up to men, right? Like literally from a boy all the way
First
up to
grade
men.
to 19. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's hear it. I'm curious.
So, the thing about scouting is it's about character building. That's the main number one. It's not about the camping. And that's what I didn't know. So it's kind of like a bait and switch, right? So we reel them in with the bow and arrows and the camping and all that, the s'mores, right? We love s'mores. Reel them all in with that. And then guess what? We're teaching you how to manage your time, because we all have to be out of here at a certain time. We're teaching you how to get along with others, because your tent mate and you don't really get along, but you were assigned together, so you got to get along. It teaches you how to prepare for the future, because every patrol has to bring their own supplies. And if we're having hot dogs and the person in charge for the buns didn't do what they're supposed to, guess what? We're not having buns. And guess what? You're not getting any of mine. I have plenty of buns. I have extra buns over here, but you're not getting them, because these are my buns. Those are your buns, and you're supposed to. Are they going to die because they don't have buns? No. Will we relinquish maybe, and for their second hot dog, maybe let them borrow a bun? Yeah, we probably will. But we want to teach them that that's part of the process. And we don't say a word. Their patrol takes care of it. Marcus, you forgot the buns again. I can't believe it. You had one job to do. And Marcus is feeling bad. Oh, I did forget the buns again. We don't have to say a word. That's character building. That's how you learn how to walk through the world. Right. We're listening, making sure you don't call him Marcus stupid or something, and take it to the next level. But some gentle ribbing about something you were supposed to do that now the whole team has to suffer. Yeah, you need to bear that cross, because that was your responsibility. And guess what? Most of the times the kids will never forget the buns again. They'll never forget it again, because they don't want that interaction with their peers, and they understand I'm important. So if I say I'm going to bring something, I need to bring it. Even if at the last minute I can't show up because I have a cold, I need to tell my mom I was in charge of the buns. Can you please drop off the buns at Alex's house? And that's the character building, right? Because when you become an adult, you do get sick, or your kid gets sick, and you can't make that presentation at work. But you better call Bob and ask Bob if he can do it for you. You just don't blow off the presentation. You know what I'm saying? And then, next time, maybe I'll have a plan B. Maybe I'll try to find a service that can come in and keep my kid if he's sick in an emergency, so I can still make. And then at lunch, I'll just cut off early and come home for lunch. And then I'm thinking in the future. So next time this happens, it won't be that big of a deal. And so, yeah, that's what we're trying to teach them. The character blocks. That's why we say a scout is trustworthy, loyal, helpful, friendly, courteous, kind, obedient, cheerful, thrifty, brave, clean, and reverent. And we all know that. We've said it thousands of times in the course, and we have it memorized. Hopefully, beyond the memorization of when you're a Cub Scout in your third, fourth grade, and you start getting into your teenage year, you start listening and understand, why am I saying this? What are these words? A scout is trustworthy. And we're always saying, hey, are you lying to me? Because a scout is trustworthy. So if you tell me that you didn't take the cookie, I'm gonna believe you. And so that's how we teach character development. And that's the main purpose of scouting, is to teach children character so they can grow up to be children. They can grow up to be adults who are making a good, positive difference in our world.
Absolutely. And also be like the best version of themselves, essentially, right?
Yes, exactly.
So no, that's huge. Yeah, instilling those values and giving them all those experiences, right, to really flourish. Tommy, something that I want to move to is, I know it was always a strong desire of yours, to become a great father. And, becoming a great father comes a lot of responsibility, right? And I know when you were in the process of doing this, there was a book that you stumbled upon, which was called The Measure of a Man. And I know that book taught you a lot of things, it taught you about strength, it taught you about dignity, character. And, as you just mentioned, right, you were talking about even, there you
right
go,
here.
there it is.
I keep it handy.
And I know a big part of the book that really, really stuck out to you was knowing who you are.
Yes.
And so a question I have for you is, how did this book, when you were pursuing, as a father, to be the best father that you could possibly be to your children, how did you use this book, to raise men?
It the book actually was recommended to me by my wife. Yeah, it was one of Oprah's book selections, and I was going on a business trip, and she said, I was going to California, so give me a book. She said, try this. So I read it, and I tell you, Ben, by the time I got off the plane, I had finished the book, right? Which is very rare for me. I'm a slow reader. So in the 3 hours or so I was on the plane, read it cover for cover. And Sidney Poitier, I've known who he was, of course. One of my mother's favorite movie, one of her favorite movies was Guess Who's Coming to Dinner? And she used to make us watch that every time it came on. And back then you had to catch it when you caught it, right? There's no VCRs, no DVDs, so it was just like a huge thing when Guess Who's Coming to Dinner came on. So the fact to read that book, decades later, and then be chosen to talk about Oprah's book club, was surreal and great. But beyond that, it was the book that was the highlight for me. The actual book, his words. And Sidney Poitier, I never thought, we have nothing in common as far as our background. Okay, we're Black men. That's about it. I mean, he, from Cat Island in the Bahamas. I'm from Connecticut. So it's just different, but we converge in the concept of fatherhood. He was father to 6 girls. I'm father to 4 boys. So there's different energy there, right? But fathering a kid to the best of your ability, that is very universal. And the main thing that I took from him was try to be a father that your kids will always look up to. And I don't mean being a father that is perfect. And I think maybe Sidney thinks that. If I had to guess, I would say Sidney was raised at a time, and by what I know by reading that book and talking to him, I think that he, like he says, the measure of a man is how well he takes care of his family. That's what Sidney Poitier's father said. The measure of a man is how well he takes care of his family. I don't necessarily agree with that. I think it's one of them, but I have different measures of a man. There's many of them for me, and that could be one of them. And that was my father's measure. So maybe it's a generation thing. Dads went and they worked. That's it, and that's how they took care of the family. And they played with the kids a little bit or whatever, but bedtime, mom's taking them upstairs to bed and dad's reading the newspaper. So that was the 50s, right? or the 60s. That's where dads were. I was raised in the 70s, and my dad showed his love by working. That's what he did. And by providing a great home and then later in Connecticut, and we were the Jeffersons moving on up right to Connecticut, beautiful house. And that's how he showed love. He's like, I'm putting you in a great house and you're getting a great education. And I went to college and I didn't have to do any loans or whatever. I was blessed. My dad paid for it all. And that's how he showed me love. But he wasn't around a lot. He wasn't around a lot. I was around a whole lot. Like my boys grew up with two-parent home every day. My wife was a stay-at-home mom, and I worked from home. I traveled, but when I was home, I was home. So most of the time, they had two parents at home with them all day. You ask them today, they probably would say that wasn't a good thing, but it was. It was a good thing, and they were always watched. They were always cared for. They were never alone. They never got into trouble because they really had no way to get into trouble because we were home and we were involved and we were active in their lives. So, the main thing from the book for me, looking at Sidney's lessons and how he walked through life doesn't necessarily match mine, but the core concepts of being a good father are. And I'll tell you, the one thing, I get choked up every time I think about it. The one thing about this book or that show, the highlight for me, it was the highlight for the producer too, was when they showed a video of Sidney and his six daughters. Oprah surprised him, had his six daughters do this video. And at the end of the video, I said, see, that's what I want. That's my measure of a man. When your children are talking like that about you, the dust has settled and they've grown up, right? They've left your house. They have their own houses. And when they say all those things about you, they still respect you. They love you. See, that's my measure of man, and I want to be like that. And Sidney said to me, trust me, you will have it like that. And it was the highlight. It truly was. It was great. It was great. I don't have it like that yet. I'm still waiting. But I trust Sidney. I don't think he just said that. Maybe he did just say that. I don't know. I'm taking it as that man knew that if I want my kids to respect me one day, that I will have it like that. So I'm gonna bank on that. That one day I will have it like that. And my kids respect me, believe me, but they're early 20s. They're doing their thing.
Yeah, and it's also an exciting time for them, right? They have that opportunity for independence
Yes.
and making their own choices because that's part of it
Yes.
too, right?
And I
They
forget
also have,
about that. I forget about how
yeah,
liberating and free that is. And I get, as a father, I get attitude. What, you don't need me anymore? Like what? I'm still your dad. I still call my dad. My dad is 79. I still call him for advice, Why wouldn't I? He's a smart man and he loves me. So I know he's only going to do it. So why my kids never call me and ask me? They just want to do it on their own. They're learning. They're free. My friends have been through it. They're like, let them go. They're like rubber bands. That's what Peter told me. They're like rubber bands. They pull away from you, but bam, they'll snap right back in your arms one day. And
yeah.
that's
There's
what I'm.
always there's always a time of need, right? And
Yep.
when that time comes, you'll be happy to be there, right? You've always been there for them, so they
And
know
they all know that.
they know that. Yeah,
They all know that. Yeah.
yeah.
But
So
I
that's
want
awesome.
them to be, what I'm missing is, hey, Dad, what you doing? Want to go to the movies? Like, I don't get that right now.
Yeah,
and that's what I want. And my son Zion, my second son, was over here yesterday, spent a few hours. We had a great time. Watched the movie Cocaine Bear. Awesome. We sat and
yeah,
watched a movie and had a great time. And it was great. It was great to have our child back in the house again. And then he's gone, and the house is quiet again. So this whole empty nest thing, I'm trying to figure that out as well. It's a whole new stage. It's an exciting stage because I don't have the kid responsibilities, but I don't have the kids responsibilities.
yeah, yeah. No, and it
Double-edged
is.
sword.
It totally is an exciting time, like you said, like for you now too, you've been there for them, you still are, right? You always will be. And so it's also nice time now for you, right? To be able
Mm-hmm.
to put some of your priorities first, which is great. And another question that I kind of want to ask you, is if you were to think about all these experiences, right? Like I know way back when you were on Oprah's show, which you spoke a little bit about, you had mentioned, hey, you only have one shot, right, as a father. And I found that
Mm-hmm.
interesting because, there's so many successes we could have and failures, which are not on purpose, right? But
Right.
they're out of humankind. So my question to you is, after all your experience, through not just reading a book, but just real life experiences, what do you believe, makes a great father?
Jeez. Wow. What makes a great father? There's so many things. And here's the thing, Ben. What makes a great father for me may not be what makes a great father for my brother or another child in my family. So I have four sons, right? And on another level, three of my four sons were adopted. So all four of my sons don't. None of them have the same DNA. So we're dealing with that whole factor. And then there's environmental. They're all raised in the same house, so that's pretty much the same. But they're four individual people with four different sets of DNA. I have to parent them four different ways. I can't be the same exact father to all of them. 80% of it is the same exact father, right? But I have to pivot and move and depending on what each child needs. And at the end of the day, I have no doubt that I was a better father to some kids than I was to others, simply because of the needs that they needed and what I could provide for them at that time. Same thing goes with my wife. I'm sure some of the kids think of her more or closer to her than others simply because that's the mother that that person needs. And sometimes it aligns that, oh, both my mother and father are just, that's it. They're the bee's knees and that's all I need. And then sometimes, you're closer to one than the other. And sometimes you're not close to either, and you got to find that love somewhere else as an adult. So, I mean, it makes it very, very challenging. So I say all that to say, Ben, that to be a good father, there's really no do this step A, step B, step C. Otherwise, I would have either wrote the book or bought the book, either or. But what I can tell you, or anybody who wants to listen, is just try to be a good person. Just be a good person. And I really feel the father or the spouse or the employee or the friend or whatever role it is you need to fill, it will happen, and it will happen in a great organic way, the way it's supposed to happen. If you're just a good person and really try to do your best. There's things I've done as a father. It's like, I really thought that was the best thing at the time. There's things I've done as a father I knew it was not the best thing at the time. If I'm being totally honest, there are things I knew in the moment I probably shouldn't do this. Nothing that's going to scar him forever or whatever. But it's just I wasn't the best. I wasn't the best, and I knew it at the time. I was just lazy. I didn't feel like doing it. I should have went to this game, or maybe I should have traveled to go see this kid that place. Even though he said it was okay, I probably should have done. There's just so many things I can think of that I could have done better while I was in the moment. And then there's largely a whole bunch more that I just didn't know, and I thought I was doing the right thing at the time. And I hope my kids give me grace and they give me mercy when it comes time, to judge me on my actions. And just as I hope their kids will do.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, and I like that you came with that, main theme, which is just do your best to be a great person, and it's funny how someone like that can be so simple, yet so sometimes hard, right?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, just do your best to take one day at a time, follow, really good core values, right?
Right.
And it ends up having a huge impactful, response, on a lot of people, especially the ones that look up to you, which are, in that situation as a father, your kids look up to you, right? So no,
Exactly.
I appreciate that. And Tommy, another question I want to ask you is,
Mm-hmm.
the purpose of this podcast is really to inspire, millions of people across the world, to achieve greatness, but overall, enhance their personal well-being. So my question for you is, what is your definition of greatness?
Greatness in people. I honestly believe, and this sounds so hokey, but everybody is capable of greatness. I don't think everybody is capable of being great. And it probably sounds like the same thing, but it's not. I just think that that acorn or that seed, that's in everybody. There's something in there in you, that there's some greatness in something that you should be doing or that you have the talent to do. You just may not discover it, or you may just ignore it. So I do believe everybody has that potential. I don't believe everybody is meant to be great or has the tools to be great. Because even though I have the seed, I still need dirt, I still need water, I still need sun, I still need all these other external factors. And I can go ahead and grow, but if I had a little fertilizer, I could grow even bigger. Fertilize, I'm talking inspiration or whatever, or coach or mentor. Those are the fertilizers of humans, right? So, I mean, I think if you do all that, tie it all together, I think you can be great. But I just don't think everybody isn't great. We know that. And I do think everyone has the potential. I just don't think everybody will do it. And I think some people are born willow trees and some people are born red oaks, And I think some people are just born to just be tall in this world and stand strong and know who they are at 3 years old, and never veer track. And there's others of us who take a little longer, and some of us are 56 years old and don't know what we want to do. We're sitting here at another crossroads, where I know something else is great is coming. I just don't know what it is.
Yeah, no, I think that's a beautiful definition. I think your thing is, if you believe in yourself and you do want to, do great things, you really can. And, you have the potential, right? But it doesn't mean that you have to do those things to be great, right? You don't, right? Everyone's got their own journey. So I love kind of like your framework there, and how you defined it is more, everyone has like the potential if they want it. And if they choose, not to want it, that's okay as well too, because they could still be great in a very different way, right?
In a very different way. I just think
there's nothing wrong with that.
There's the Michael Jordans and the Oprahs, right?
Yeah.
Of the world, right? And not everybody is meant to be that. Matter of fact, they didn't put this in the video, but while one of the things Sidney Poitier said to Oprah was, I can't believe they cut this out. She said, me and Sydney go all the time. I think everybody's great, but Sydney thinks that, only certain people, and I think it was redwoods. That's the big ones in California, right? The real tall. Yeah, he said not everybody's a redwood. Sydney calls me, and I'm Oprah talking, a redwood. That I'm a redwood among regular trees, and that's where they disagree. And Oprah's like, we can all be redwoods, and Sydney's like, no, not everybody is meant to be that. Some people are meant to be a blue collar worker somewhere. Some people are meant to be a white collar worker somewhere. Some people are meant to be Michael Jordan. I mean, there's just different people. I could never be Michael Jordan. Never. I don't have that, whatever it was he had or has, I don't have it. First of all, I don't have the interest. I don't even know how to play basketball. But second, if I did, I'm sure I don't have the physicality. That's something that probably just everything aligned perfectly and created this monster athlete. Michael Jordan, I don't know if Michael Jordan has a brother, but I bet you that brother could not be Michael Jordan, even if they had the same DNA. Everybody has different makeups, both DNA and different motivations. So you gotta have, so it's hard to compare and say you could be great if you could, well, you just have to figure out what it is. And then I think also, Ben, everybody has a superpower. So you may not call it greatness, but I think everybody has different talents or an ability that the rest of us lack. For example, one of my superpowers, I believe, is forgiveness. I don't waste a lot of time on anger, and I don't waste a lot of time on grudges. So, and a lot of stuff doesn't even bother me to begin with, especially at this age. So I'm good. That's my superpower. If I say we're good, we could go at it. And then later that just, hey, Ben, I'm good. I'm marinated in this a day. I still feel you're wrong, but I'm good. And I hope you trust that I am, because that means I'm good. And literally 2 weeks ago, I'll never think about it again. 2 weeks later, it'll take that long for it to be covered over by something else. And I will not. And then you're like, remember that big fight we had? And I'll be like, no. You're like, how could you not? We didn't speak for a day. I don't remember it. Whatever it was, you were probably wrong, Ben. So that's why I don't remember it. But that's just one of my superpowers. I just really feel. I also connect real quick with people. That's another one. I think most people and me have something in common. We just have to talk, and there it is. Pop it up. There it is. Oh, we're both born in Dayton, Ohio. Well, you figure that out just by talking. So I think connecting with people quickly and forgiving people. I think those are a couple of my superpowers. I have others. So do you. What's your superpower, Ben?
I'd say my superpower is, just authenticity. I really, strive to be a good person, to be authentic, and to lead without
What
a
does that
title.
mean, authentic? What does that mean to you?
Authentic to me means, being like your true self, right? And being very comfortable in your skin to be your true self.
How
Uh,
does that look
it looks in many ways, as
with you?
simple
How
as
does that look? Where do you show your outfit? Like, how would I know that you're being authentic? Well, I have to like be your friend after a while and be like, okay, is that
no,
how it works?
I think,
Or
yeah, I think, no, it's a great question. I think, just, it kind of goes to that story that we talked about, before with Peter, talking to the CEO or a janitor the same way.
yeah,
It's,
yep.
in my opinion, like, I try and display that in my everyday life, whether it's, in my profession, whether it's in a running community. But it's just like, for me, it's because I generally am interested in the person. I'm generally, happy to help, or I'm happy to have that conversation. So yeah, I think for me, like, yeah, like just being my true authentic self, I think is my
Hmm.
superpower.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I guess I would agree because you're very, very comfortable. I mean, I talked to you, was that yesterday or day before? And yeah, very comfortable to talk to. So yeah, I would agree with that.
Thank you. No, I appreciate that.
Hmm.
And Tommy,
Unless you're just a psychopath and this is all an act.
maybe
And you really go out and murder people at night.
you never know. Maybe watch out. And
Oh,
then
there you go.
Tommy, I have a question for you. Now that you've seen my podcast and seen what it's all about, who is a future guest that you would like to see on this show?
I was thinking about that. I have a friend, because I was like, I bet he's gonna ask me, like he asked Peter. Um, I want to think about it a little bit more, but there's one woman I thought about initially, which is my friend Jerry,
Yeah.
Geri, female, and she's a runner. She just retired from this big corporate job, but she's a beat breast cancer, big time, big time, and it's changed her life. She would be great to interview, I think. I have really interesting friends. I'll get you a list.
That's awesome. That's awesome, Tommy. Well, I'm pumped to see the list, and more importantly, I'm pumped to bring on some more great conversations. And I just want to take this last little bit of time, Tom, to really thank you for being here. Thank you for your time. Thank you
No problem.
for your gift of sharing your wisdom and insights that are important to you.
I appreciate it. No problem. I appreciate the forum in which to talk and keep it up. I mean, I think I told you I tried this a couple of years ago. It's hard. It's hard. So I really, really appreciate you doing this. And yeah, figure out how you can make this your full-time job, man. Do it.